The night was heavy with rain, the pavement shining under the glow of streetlights. When Emily stumbled out of the car, her heart thundering against her chest, she whispered, "David, tell me this isn't real." Her voice cracked as her eyes fixed on him, but David didn't look back. His hand slid into Sophia's, their fingers entwined like a cruel confession. Emily's world collapsed in an instant, the echo of betrayal cutting sharper than the cold air. Her breath came in shallow bursts, tears mixing with raindrops. She thought of the sacrifices, the love, the trust she had given without hesitation. The betrayal was not silent, it screamed through the storm. Emily said, "After everything I gave, was I never enough?" Her voice barely rose above the rain, but the truth struck deeper than any answer David could give. The silence between them was louder than thunder, a silence that shattered her self-worth. Emily sat in the silence of her bedroom, the storm outside echoing the chaos in her heart. She whispered, "How could he do this?" Her hands traced the photo frame of her family, trembling as though it burned her. Memories of laughter, of shared dreams, of whispered promises haunted her. The walls of her home no longer felt safe. They felt like witnesses to a lie. Every corner whispered David's betrayal. Emily tried to steady her breathing, but the weight of it pressed down harder. She had built her identity around love, trust, and devotion. Now, all of it seemed stolen. She muttered, "I gave him everything, and he left me empty." The room spun with grief, the shadows flickering like ghosts of broken promises. The storm outside was loud, but the silence in her heart was deafening. Emily walked into the kitchen, the sound of dripping water from the faucet stabbing at her ears. She leaned on the counter, staring at her reflection in the dark window. "Who am I without him?" she whispered. Her hands shook as she reached for a glass, but it slipped and shattered across the floor. The shards sparkled like broken trust, fragments of her identity scattered at her feet. Kneeling, she tried to gather the pieces, but the sharp edges cut into her skin. A thin line of blood trailed down her hand, and Emily winced, whispering, "Even when I try to fix things, I only hurt myself more." She sank to the floor, pressing her bleeding hand against her chest, her sobs muffled by the sound of the storm. Storm passed, but Emily felt no peace. The house smelled of damp air, the silence pressing heavily against her. She walked to the living room, where David's jacket still hung carelessly on the chair. She touched the sleeve, her hand trembling, and whispered, "Why did you leave me with nothing but lies?" The jacket smelled faintly of his cologne, once comforting, now suffocating. Emily closed her eyes, pressing her forehead to the fabric, desperate to erase the image of him holding Sophia's hand. She muttered, "Was she worth more than everything we built?" Her voice cracked as she pulled the jacket tighter, clinging to what was gone. Her body shook, the room spinning with grief that clung heavier than the storm outside. Emily sat curled on the floor, back against the wall, the photo album spread open before her. She traced the pictures with trembling fingers, each smile now feeling like a cruel memory. "We were supposed to grow old together," she whispered. The sound of her own voice cracked the silence, echoing hollow in the empty house. Her heart thudded painfully as she stared at a picture of their wedding day, her face glowing with joy, his with confidence. She said softly, "You vowed forever," and forever ended in her hands. Emily's sobs came in waves, her chest heaving as the weight of betrayal sank deeper. She slammed the album shut, the sound echoing through the room like the final shattering of trust. Morning light crept into the room, but Emily felt no warmth. She sat at the dining table, untouched coffee steaming faintly before her. Her eyes lingered on the empty chair across from her. She whispered, "That seat was never supposed to be empty." She remembered mornings when David teased her about drinking too much coffee, their laughter filling the kitchen. Now, silence filled every corner. The sound of the clock ticking grew louder, each second mocking her loneliness. Emily picked up her phone, scrolling through old texts, her chest tightening as she read his affectionate words. They felt like daggers now, lies dressed as love. She muttered, "Were any of these words ever meant for me?" Her throat ached as tears slipped down her cheeks, staining the tablecloth. The morning sun glowed, but inside, she felt nothing but a hollow ache that refused to fade. Emily walked into her children's room, the air heavy with innocence and memories. She picked up a small toy car from the floor, her hand trembling as she whispered, "I built this world for them, for us." The walls were lined with drawings and family photos, each one stabbing her heart. She stared at a picture of David holding their daughter, his smile bright, his arms strong around the child. It felt like a stranger's face now. Emily sat on the edge of the bed, clutching the toy to her chest. Her tears wet the blanket, the weight of betrayal pressing deeper as she thought of explaining this heartbreak to young minds. "How do I tell them their father chose lies over love?" she muttered, her voice broken by the unbearable truth. Later that day, Emily met Mark at a quiet cafe. He leaned across the table, his voice low. "Emily, you don't deserve this pain." She forced a weak smile, whispering, "Then why does it feel like I do?" Mark reached for her hand, but she pulled back, her pride fighting her vulnerability. The clinking of cups around them felt distant, muted by her sorrow. Mark said softly, "He broke you, but that doesn't mean you're broken." His words lingered, but Emily shook her head. She whispered, "If I wasn't enough for him, how can I be enough for myself?" Her eyes clouded with despair, while Mark's expression shifted to helpless concern. Back home, Emily stared at the mirror, her reflection a stranger. Her makeup smudged, eyes swollen, hair tangled. She whispered, "Who am I now?" She traced the lines of her face, searching for the woman she once knew, confident, trusting, full of life. She remembered the way David used to call her beautiful, how his words once made her glow. Now those memories felt like poison. Emily pressed her palm against the mirror, her tears leaving streaks across the glass. "I see nothing but emptiness," she said, her voice shaking. The reflection gave no comfort, only a hollow reminder of what had been taken. Night fell again, but sleep did not come. Emily lay curled on the couch, blanket draped over her shoulders, staring at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed on the table, but she ignored it. She whispered, "I don't have the strength to hear another lie." The shadows in the room stretched long, swallowing the warmth of the lamp beside her. Every creak in the house sounded like ghosts of her past, haunting her with reminders of trust broken. She clutched the blanket tighter, whispering, "If love was real, it wouldn't leave me in pieces." Her eyes closed, but her mind replayed every detail of betrayal, refusing her peace. Emily sat hunched at her desk, her trembling fingers scrolling through David's phone that she had taken when he wasn't looking. Each message she read cut deeper, filled with words of affection not meant for her. She whispered, "He called her the names he once gave me." Her chest tightened as she scrolled further, finding photos of smiles that were not hers. The promises in his texts mirrored the vows he had broken. Emily muttered, "All those nights he came home late. They weren't just excuses." Tears blurred her vision, but she couldn't stop reading. Her heart throbbed with a cruel rhythm, each beat chanting betrayal. She slammed the phone onto the desk, her voice breaking as she said, "Every word was a lie, and I was too blind to see." Emily stormed into the living room, her hands shaking as she clutched the phone. She shouted, "How long have you been lying to me, David?" Her voice cracked, echoing through the empty house. The silence offered no answer, only the weight of absence pressing harder. She threw the phone onto the couch, the sound sharp against the stillness. Pacing the room, she whispered, "I gave you loyalty, and you gave me deceit." The wall seemed to close in, trapping her in memories she wanted to erase. She collapsed into the armchair, curling into herself. The storm of thoughts refused to quiet, her mind replaying his smiles, his excuses, and every moment of trust she had wasted. Later that night, Emily sat with Sophia's name glowing on the phone screen. Her thumb hovered, trembling as rage mixed with fear. She whispered, "Do I have the strength to hear her voice?" With a deep breath, she pressed call. The line clicked, and Sophia's calm tone filled the silence. "Emily, you weren't supposed to find out this way," she said softly. Emily's voice shook as she replied, "You stole my life, my family, my work." The silence after her words felt heavier than the storm outside. Sophia whispered, I didn't mean to hurt you. Emily's tears streamed freely as she muttered, but you did, and I will never forgive you. The next day, Emily met Sophia in a small park. The air was heavy, clouds dimming the afternoon light. Sophia stood nervously, arms crossed, her gaze shifting away. Emily said firmly, You destroyed everything I trusted. Sophia's eyes filled with guilt, her voice low. David made his choices, and I made mine. Emily's tears burned, but her voice steadied. You both took from me what can't be returned. The distance between them felt like a battlefield, the silence broken only by the rustling leaves. Emily's chest rose with sharp breaths, each word weighing heavy. You weren't just my friend. You were my family. Sophia looked down, her face pale, unable to meet Emily's eyes. That night, Emily sat in her daughter's room again, the drawings on the wall staring back at her like accusations. She whispered, How do I explain to her that her father chose betrayal? Her body shook as she hugged a small blanket, tears soaking the fabric. The innocence of the room mocked the destruction outside its walls. Emily closed her eyes, imagining her daughter's voice asking, Why, Mommy? Her heart clenched with pain she couldn't bear. She said softly, I will protect you from this truth, even if it breaks me. Her words vanished into the silence, but the promise clung to her like a fragile shield against the storm of betrayal. Emily's phone rang late at night, the screen glowing with an unexpected name, her estranged mother, Margaret. Hesitation weighed on her before she answered. Margaret's voice trembled. Emily, there's something I should have told you long ago. Confusion tightened Emily's chest. She asked, What do you mean? Margaret sighed heavily. David isn't the only betrayal you're living with. The man you called father, he isn't who you think he is. Emily froze, her heart stopping mid-beat. Her mother's words cut deeper than she could bear. She whispered, Why now? Why after everything? Margaret's reply cracked, Because lies have already stolen enough from you. Emily sat on the edge of the bed, the silence suffocating after the call. Her mind spun with questions she didn't want to face. She whispered, First David, now this. My whole life was a lie. Her hands trembled as she gripped the photo album again, staring at the smiling man she once believed was her father. The weight of Margaret's confession pressed on her chest like a stone. She muttered, If my family was built on lies, was I ever truly loved? Tears blurred the photos as she slammed the album shut. The sound echoed like a final confirmation that truth had always been out of reach. The next morning, Emily sat across from Margaret at a quiet diner. Margaret's face was pale, her eyes heavy with regret. Emily demanded, Why did you lie to me my whole life? Margaret's voice cracked. I thought I was protecting you. Emily's hands curled into fists on the table. You protected me from the truth, but you left me defenseless against every lie, she said sharply. Margaret's tears rolled silently, her gaze lowered. Emily's heart pounded as she whispered, I trusted you more than anyone. Now I don't know who I am anymore. The bitter taste of betrayal was everywhere, even in her bloodline. Emily walked through her childhood home later that day, the walls lined with photos that now felt like strangers staring back. Her hand hovered over the frame of her so-called father. She whispered, Every smile, every hug, it was all built on lies. The air felt thick, the silence pressing down harder with each step. Her throat tightened as memories flooded back. Birthdays, family dinners, all poisoned by a truth she was never told. Emily muttered, I don't even know my own blood anymore. Her body shook as she slid down against the wall, clutching the frame, her sobs muffled against the wood floor. That evening, Emily sat with Mark, her voice hollow. It's not just David, Mark. My mother told me the man I thought was my father isn't. Mark leaned forward, eyes wide with sympathy. Emily, this doesn't change who you are, he said softly. Her lips quivered as she whispered, But if my life was built on lies, then who am I now? Mark reached across the table, his hands steady, his voice firm. You're still the same woman who loves deeply, who sacrifices, who fights. Lies can't erase that. Emily closed her eyes, letting the words sink in, though her heart still felt fractured beyond repair. Emily stood outside David's apartment, the evening air heavy with silence. Her fists clenched, her breath quick. She whispered, "I deserve answers tonight." She knocked sharply, the sound echoing like a demand for truth. When the door opened, David appeared, his expression shifting from surprise to discomfort. Emily's eyes burned as she said, "You owe me the truth, every last piece of it." His lips parted, but she cut him off, her voice rising. "Do not give me excuses. Give me the reality you denied me." The hallway seemed to shrink, pressing them closer into confrontation. Neither could escape. Inside the apartment, Emily's eyes darted around the space that carried Sophia's presence, her scarf draped on a chair, her perfume faint in the air. Emily's chest heaved as she said, "You brought her into the life we built." David's shoulders slumped, his voice defensive. "It just happened, Emily." Rage surged as she shouted, "No, betrayal doesn't just happen. You chose this, every single time." Her words struck like knives, and David's silence was louder than denial. Emily's tears streamed down, but her voice held steel. "You watched me give everything, and you gave me nothing but lies." Moments later, Sophia stepped into the room, her face tense with unease. Emily turned sharply, her eyes blazing. "You were my friend, my sister, and everything that mattered," she said, her voice trembling but fierce. Sophia's lips quivered as she muttered, "I never meant to." Emily cut her off, shouting, "You meant every kiss, every lie, every secret." The silence that followed was unbearable, filled with the weight of their shattered bond. Emily's chest rose and fell with furious breaths, her gaze darting between the two of them. "Both of you stripped me of the life I trusted," she said, her voice breaking under the weight of betrayal. Emily's voice dropped to a calm but cutting tone, more powerful than her screams. "You thought you could take everything from me, but you underestimated me," she said, her gaze locked on Sophia. Sophia's eyes widened, fear flickering as she whispered, "Emily." David stepped forward, but Emily raised her hand, stopping him cold. "You don't get to explain anymore," she said firmly. Her body trembled, but her words carried strength she hadn't felt before. "This isn't about losing you anymore. It's about finding myself in the ruins you left." The tension filled the room like fire, ready to consume everything. Emily stepped back toward the door, her voice steady, though her heart raced. "You no longer have power over me," she declared, each word a hammer striking the fragile silence. David's eyes flickered with regret, but he stayed silent. Sophia looked down, shame washing over her face. Emily's tears glistened, but they no longer weakened her. She whispered, "I may be broken, but I'm still standing, and that's more than either of you can claim." She opened the door, the cool night air rushing in like freedom. The sound of it drowned out their silence, leaving Emily walking away stronger, even in her shattered state. Emily sat on the park bench the next morning, her eyes swollen from the night before. The world carried on around her, children laughing, dogs barking, but inside she felt hollow. She whispered, "Everything looks the same, but nothing feels the same." Her hands gripped the bench tightly, grounding her against the ache in her chest. Memories of David and Sophia still pierced her, but so did Margaret's revelation about her father. Emily sighed. How much more of myself was built on lies? The sunlight fell warmly across her face, but it couldn't thaw the cold that lived within her now. Back at home, Emily sat at the kitchen table with Mark across from her. His steady gaze held her together when she felt she might unravel again. He said gently, "Pain doesn't erase your worth." She shook her head, whispering, "But it's all I feel." Mark reached out, his hand resting over hers, his tone firm. "The betrayal was their choice, not your failure." Emily's lips trembled, and her eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "Then why do I feel like I was never enough?" Mark's voice softened. "Because you gave too much to people who never deserved it." His words wrapped around her like armor she didn't know she needed. Emily stood in front of her mirror again, But this time she didn't cry. Her face was tired, her eyes still red, but she saw more than pain staring back. She whispered, "You survived what tried to break you." Her fingers touched the glass, no longer searching for the woman she lost, but acknowledging the one who remained. For the first time, the reflection didn't feel like a stranger. Emily took a deep breath, straightening her shoulders. She muttered, "He doesn't define me. Neither do her lies. Not anymore." The silence in the room carried a fragile peace, one she wasn't ready to trust, but one she desperately wanted to hold. Emily visited Margaret again, her heart conflicted. Margaret's eyes were heavy with regret, as she said softly, "I only wanted to spare you." Emily's voice shook. "You spared me from truth, but you condemned me to lies." Margaret reached for her hand, but Emily hesitated before letting their fingers touch. For the first time, she saw her mother not as a betrayer, but as another broken woman carrying guilt. Emily whispered, "We can't change the past, but I can't let it poison my future." Margaret's tears fell silently, her lips trembling as she nodded. The fragile thread of forgiveness hung between them, thin but real. That night, Emily stood on the balcony, the city lights stretching endlessly before her. The cool air brushed against her face, carrying away the heaviness of the day. She whispered, "I lost the life I knew, but maybe I found myself in the ruins." Her heart still ached, but the crushing weight of betrayal had softened into something bearable. She closed her eyes, feeling the quiet strength in her chest, a fragile flame refusing to die. Emily said softly, "Tomorrow will still hurt, but tomorrow will still come." The truth lingered, but for the first time, it no longer owned her. Emily sat alone at the kitchen table, the ticking clock echoing in the quiet night. Her phone lay in front of her, the screen glowing with unanswered messages. She whispered, "Everyone leaves when the truth comes out." Her hand hovered over the phone, trembling with the urge to call someone, anyone, but she stopped herself. She muttered, "No one can carry this pain but me." The silence pressed hard, heavier than the betrayal itself. Her chest rose and fell with uneven breaths as tears slipped down her cheeks. She stared at the dark window, her reflection barely recognizable, a woman scarred but still standing. Later, Emily sat curled on the couch, holding the family photo album on her lap. She opened to their wedding picture, her hand trembling as she traced David's face. She whispered, "You promised me forever," and forever ended in someone else's hands. Her tears fell onto the photo, blurring the ink of smiles that no longer existed. She slammed the album shut, her breath breaking. "I buried myself in your lies, but I won't stay buried." The words came out as a vow, soft but powerful, a quiet fire burning beneath the grief that still consumed her. Emily stood in her daughter's empty room, the drawings on the wall glowing faintly in the moonlight. She held a small stuffed toy, pressing it against her chest. She whispered, "I will protect you from the ugliness of this world, even if it destroys me." Her voice cracked, but carried strength. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring into the dark, and muttered, "You will never know the depth of the lies that broke us." Her tears soaked into the soft blanket, each drop carrying the weight of a mother's promise. The silence of the room echoed with innocence she vowed to defend. On the balcony again, Emily looked out over the glittering city lights. The night was cold, the wind tugging at her hair. She whispered, "Betrayal stripped me of love, of family, of truth." Her eyes narrowed, her lips trembling as she added, "But it didn't destroy me." The glow of the city reflected in her eyes as her heart pounded with fragile defiance. She whispered, "I'm still here. I'm still breathing." For the first time, the words didn't feel like desperation but survival. The silence of the night carried them, as if the universe itself bore witness to her fight. Emily returned inside, picking up her phone one last time. Her thumb hovered over Mark's number, her breath unsteady. She whispered, "Maybe I can't heal alone." But when she pressed call, the line rang endlessly. No answer came. Emily sank into the chair, the phone still pressed to her ear. She whispered, "I've been alone all along." The silence on the line echoed her deepest truth, louder than any words. She closed her eyes, tears streaming, the weight of betrayal settling like an old companion. The screen went dark, leaving Emily in shadows, her story ending in haunting stillness.